Alright, what's up everyone? This is bluetea-TCG coming at you with the Vanguard deck profile, this time for Gavrail OTK. And Gavrail OTK, after the ban list recently released by Bushiroad, I believe it was March 13th, 12th, something like that. Basically, it was last week at the time of recording this video. And they hit Hamiel. I think everyone expected this. So now I'm just going to show today the adjusted deck profile. Taking into account the banning of Hamiel. So a lot of the list is kind of the same a little bit. There are some things that change in terms of the overall strategy because the deck is a little slower than it was with Hamiel. But that being said, we'll go right into the deck profile. We'll start off with the starter. Standard V series starter. We're running one medical kit angel. Basically just on riding, draw a card, get a quick shield. You have to run it, so you know, nothing much to say about that. Then we are running 4 Heal Guardians. So this is the trigger lineup that we're going into now. 4 Heal Guardians right here. And the reason why we're running 4 Heal Guardians is this deck is a little slower than the Hamiel variant that we had in the past. So we do need that little bit of that survivability. And you don't really mind seeing too much some of these heal triggers off the top of the deck or off the damage check as you did with the Hamiel variant. Because Hamiel, you wanted to get to that 3 counterblast as quickly as possible, which is why we're running the Zophiel as well, the grade 1 that gives yourself a damage. But anyway, you don't really mind seeing the heal triggers that much with this variant because it's a little slower. You usually pull off the pop off turn, as we like to call it, by the second or third grade 3 turns. So it's not a huge deal to have the heal triggers just for some early game survivability. But the fact that we're running Heal Guardians makes a difference because the Heal Guardians allow you to survive a little bit. They give you the ability to give your Vanguard plus 10,000 power until the end of turn if you're not at grade 3, and if you've not ridden to grade 3, excuse me. And the second ability that you can use is to debuff the opponent's Vanguard by, or not opponent's Vanguard, it can be any one of the opponent's units. Basically, you just choose the attacker that they're currently using, and you get -2 crits. So that really helps with just, getting that sustainability that you need for the early game with this new deck. So we're running 4 Heal Guardians. We're running 4 Sentinel crit, 4, and then, 4 of this crit and 4 more of this crit. So basically, we're running 12 crits, including the Sentinel crit. The Sentinel crit is the important one because you don't want to run PGs in this deck. The draw trigger doesn't really do much for the combo that we're trying to pull off. And plus, having those 12 crits just adds the pressure that, you can stack up to your Mobile Hospital Feather Palace, or you can just, use it to get some early game crit sacks on your opponent and, to their ire, right? We love crit sacking in this game. So that is the trigger lineup: 12 crits, 4 Heal Guardians. So for the most part, similar to the old build. The only difference I think is the Heal Guardians. We're running 4 of them instead of 2, which is how many I ran in the old build I had for Hamiel. So now to the grade 1 lineup, we're running 4 Nakir. So I think Nakir is not really surprising to most of you probably. The thing about these 4 Nakir is that you're able to search out the Gavrails or the Mobile Hospital Feather Palaces that you really need because you want those in your hand generally. If you're not able to get them in the damage zone with Sariel, or if you just never see the Sariel in general during the game, then having the Nakir as an extra, insurance to get that Mobile Hospital or Gavrail in your hand is really necessary. And also the extra 5k it gets if you put a card in your damage zone is literally free. Like you'll probably never go a turn without putting some card in your damage zone usually. Now if you're not some now I will say, I shouldn't say free in that regard. I will say with this newer variant without Hamiel, we do want to kind of calm down in terms of going for like insane combo plays. We want to save all of that for the Mobile Hospital turn because you don't really want to, overextend and find yourself in a position where you don't have enough triggers that you can pull off top of your deck for your Mobile Hospital turn, or in general you just uh, you know somehow might deck out. I don't know how that would happen in V Premium these days, but it could happen. So you don't really want to go too hard on the damage check turns. But regardless, having Nakir as the extra booster can help with that stage of the game where you're not doing too much because that extra 5k triggers off of, not a trigger, it's a continuous ability where the condition is you have to have put a card into any player's damage zone. So it can be either yours or your opponent's. We don't have any cards that really put cards in the opponent's damage zone like that. Like if people were running, I believe Freezing Granter. You could do that. You could give your opponent a damage, but by removing one of their rear guards. Basically, you put a rear guard into their damage zone, and then they heal a card from their damage zone. But we're not running any of those cards, so that's not really a huge deal to us. So 4 Nakir and 3 Zophiel. So Zophiel is a little interesting because I think this card was being run at 4 in a lot of lists with Hamiel. And this card is still a good card, mind you. Like the first skill especially kind of makes them question whether they should guard this card early game if you're going second, because it allows you to draw a card if it hits. And most of the time people don't really guard the first damage of the game unless they're really trying to, like, prevent you from getting rushed, prevent themselves from getting rushed down. But the second skill is one of the reasons why we're running this card at 3 instead of 4 in this new build, because basically the second skill is if you have a Vanguard with black in its name, you could discard a card as cost, and then return a card from your damage zone to your hand. And if you return a card, you deal 1 damage to yourself. So that's like a rescue check basically. Now here's the problem with this card. It requires a Vanguard with black in its name, and we lost Hamiel, which has black in its name. Um, so now that we lost Hamiel, we lost that kind of extra like consistency with getting this card off, the second skill that is. So we don't really want to see this card as much as we wanted to see it in the previous build. So that's why I'm running it at 3. However, you still want to see this card because it just adds as an extra like damage checker. You want extra names because all of the damage checkers that we're running in this deck have a hard once per turn based on name. So we want to run as many of them as we want to run all of them, but we don't want to run like them at max copies basically. So that's the idea behind that. But I feel like at 3 it is a good amount still. It's still a good card, especially if you get this as your first ride going second. You do want to keep this in your starting hand because it just adds that much pressure to your opponent in general. So 3 Zophiel. We are running 3 Bellyful. I don't think this is too much of a surprise. This card is really good. It's another one of those hard once per turns we're running in this deck. It allows you basically to put it into the soul. It's an activated ability on the rearguard circle. You put it into the soul as cost, and you swap a card from your hand into a card with the damage. So very strong card. If you have a card like Mobile Hospital or Gavrail in your damage zone, you can just easily use Bellyful to get that in your hand. You can also get any other combo piece like Sariel or Japhkiel or any card that enables you to go into your combo that you need to do for the rest of the game. So Bellyful is just really good for all of that. And actually, I was running in the Hamiel build. I was running 2 of this card, and I was hesitating whether to run. I was contemplating whether to run 3 of this card or 2. I feel like 2 or 3 is like pretty much the right amount to run of this card in this kind of deck. But it's still a very good card. So we very much appreciate having it. And oh yeah, one more thing about this card before we move on. The next card we're gonna have actually is gonna, come into play when I'm discussing further what Bellyful can do. But basically, if you use Bellyful, if you use Bellyful skill, so let's say it's in the rearguard circle, right? You put it into the soul, and then you get the ability off, right? So now it's in the soul. So that becomes a resource for your other cards that require Soul Blast. And the thing about it, when you Soul Blast this card from the soul into the drop zone, you have Scaling Angel in this deck as well, which can actually bring it back into the damage zone and allow you to use it again if you have a card that can put it back into your hand. So having that kind of recursion is actually really nice too, which is why I think this card at 3 is great, because you do want to see it, but you also, of course, it's hard once per turn, so you don't want to like see a bunch of it in your hand. So yeah, that's all for Bellyful Meds Angel. And to round off our grade 1 lineup, we have 3 Scaling Angels. So Scaling Angel, I was not running this in the Hamiel variant that we had before the ban list, but I think this card is really good actually. Now that the deck's a lot slower, this deck is in general good in slower Angel Feather decks. It allows you to get back the stuff from your drop zone that you used up previously, and just continue going into your plays, which I think makes a huge difference, especially in this deck where we Soul Blast a lot. And of course, we have a bunch of cards that will heal, like off of Sariel, we heal, and if we check a heal trigger, we'll be healing as well. So those cards will go to the drop zone, and then Scaling Angel can recover those, put them in the damage zone, and that way we can grab it off again with Gavrail's skill, with Japhkiel's skill, with there's a bunch of cards that can allow you to get cards from the damage zone. So Scaling Angel is great in this deck. The first skill doesn't really come up that much because you don't find yourself riding this card over a card like Zophiel or Nakir, but it's still not a terrible card to ride. If you're going second and you find this card in your starting hand, you can ride it, do the the V series skill starters effect first. You draw a card and then get a quick shield, and then you can use this card to just discard the quick shield as cost and then draw a card. So that's a really nice play to do if you're going second as well. But yeah, we're mainly running Scale Angel for the second effect, of course. Really good card just in general to recycle those resources, but I don't think you need to run more than 3 of this card because it's not a combo piece. It's more so just like a recursion piece. Try to uh, get back your resources that you already used up early on. So that does it for our grade 1 lineup. Now we're going on to the grade 2s. I think the grade 2s are pretty standard, so I won't spend too long on them. Well, maybe this first card isn't standard at the ratio I'm running it, but we are running 3 Salaphiel. So this card was obviously run at 4 in the Hamiel build, but again, similar to Zophiel, we don't have Hamiel in this deck anymore, and typically this card would be used as like just rush on the first grade 3 turn. You ride Gavrail and then you just spam all the cards from your hand that damage check. But similar to Zophiel, we're not for most of the game we're not actually doing anything with the damage check cards. We're mainly just trying to get them at some point in our hand and then use them later on. But I do not think it's necessary to see this card a lot as you would have wanted to in the Hamiel build. So we're still running 3 of it. Of course, you do want to see it because Soul Blast 1 rescue check is just amazing. It's a hard once per turn, so just do keep that in mind. But it's a good card still to have in this deck, just for, again, facilitating the combo and, the standard uh, V series Angel Feather stuff. But yeah, we are running this card at 3. And we are running, I think this comes to no surprise, 4 Sariel, one of the best grade 2s in the deck. Honestly, with now the disappearance of Hamiel, this probably is the best grade 2 in the deck. I mean, I say that, but Japhkiel's still super good. So anyway, Sariel can literally tutor out any Angel Feather normal unit in your deck to the damage zone, shuffle, and then you heal a card from your damage zone. The heal part is not as huge, it's not as significant as the fact that you can literally pull any normal unit in your whole deck into the damage zone, which allows you to get like a Zerachiel if you need to get that in the damage zone, or if you've never seen Mobile Hospital yet so far in the game, you can get Mobile Hospital in the damage zone. And if you have a way to get it out of the damage zone with Japhkiel or Bellyful Meds Angel, or any one of those cards that allows you to swap with something from the damage zone to the hand, then Sariel is going to be that way to get there. So it's just an amazing card. And the second effect, it doesn't come up as much in this deck as it does for Ramiel, the Celestial builds, excuse me. But if you have 1 or less face down damage, then it gets boost. The thing about this card now, since we're running Mobile Hospital, this won't come up as much because Mobile Hospital does face down all the cards in your damage zone, so we won't be getting that boost as often as we did, in previous times. But still, the first skill is just amazing, and it's worth noting that it's the first skill can trigger, um, when it's placed from anywhere. It doesn't have to be placed from hand, unlike some of the other Angel Feather cards. I think that's the same case for Salaphiel though and Zophiel. But some of the older Angel Feather cards that they released in V Series were only worked when placed from hand. So it's worth noting that this card works for when placed from anywhere, as long as it's placed on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle. So yeah, 4 Sariel, and that's the same for Salaphiel, Zophiel, Scaling Angel as well, and cards like that. So 4 Sariel and 4 Japhkiel to round out our grade 2 lineup. I don't think this comes as a surprise. Literally, one of the best staple cards that Angel Feather has in V Premium. You should be running this card at 4 in most Angel Feather decks in V Premium. It's a really good card. Let's just explain why really quickly. When placed on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, counterblast 1, and this unit gets plus 3,000 power until end of turn. And then you return a card from damage zone to hand, and then deal yourself 1 damage. So this card is literally +1 for free. Like, just really good. It's a hard once per turn, but I mean honestly, the hard once per turn is just a fair thing to balance it out because otherwise this card would just be insanely good. This is how you get your Mobile Hospital out of the damage zone, or if you haven't seen Gavrail yet the whole game, you get Gavrail out of the damage zone as well into your hand. But usually you'll see Gavrail by the time you need to, so it's not a huge deal that Gavrail. You don't really need to use the skill to get Gavrail in your hand. But if you haven't seen Gavrail, of course you get Gavrail in your hand as well. But most of the time you'll be using this to get Mobile Hospital from the damage zone to your hand, or any other combo piece that allows you to continue the damage checks like Zophiel or Salaphiel, or even Scaling Angel if you need that as well. So 4 Japhkiel, super good card. And that does it for the grade 2s. So now to grade 3s. I want to have this ordered like not in the way I wanted to, so I'm just going to order this the other way. I'll talk about Mobile Hospital afterwards, but we're going to run let's talk about Gavrail first, of course. We're gonna run 4 Gavrail. Same as the Hamiel build. Gavrail is how you Gavrail is the main Vanguard that you want to ride into as on grade 3. She allows you to basically continue your damage checks and get Mobile Hospital to insane power because it gives your whole front row plus 10k if you put at least I believe 3. Let me just check quickly. If you put a total of 3 or more new cards in your damage zone this turn, um, or it's not even in your damage zone. Let me see. Any player's damage zone. Yes. So if three or more new cards are put in any player's damage zone this turn, then your whole front row gets plus 10 as a continuous aura, so aura ability. So really good card to help buff up your mobile hospital attack. And the second skill is the most important skill. It's a soft once per turn, but I mean, it's a Vanguard only, so it might as well be just once per turn. No reason to say soft. But anyway, Camel Best 1, Soul Best 1. You return a card from your damage zone to your hand, so +1. And then you also return a card from your damage zone to the bottom of your deck. Usually you'll get a trigger to put at the bottom of your deck, and then you deal yourself 2 damage. So that's another way to get those rescue checks to hopefully pump up Mobile Hospital to upwards 70k, 80k, and actually it can easily hit that number because of Mobile Hospital's own skill, which we'll talk about a little later. But yeah, that's what Gavrail's in here for, of course, just to facilitate the combo. And it's also worth mentioning that if you use that skill and put a trigger unit at the bottom of the deck, then you should have a Sariel in hand in order, no, or not in hand, doesn't have to be in hand literally, but like you should have a Sariel available somewhere that you can get to use Sariel's skill, put a normal unit into the damage zone, and then heal a card from your damage zone, right? What that does, it not only shuffles your deck because you put a trigger at the bottom using Gavrail, so that trigger's at the bottom. You're never going to see it that turn if you don't shuffle your deck. But Sorry allows you to shuffle your deck because you're searching the deck for a normal unit and putting into the damage zone. So not only does it shuffle the deck, but the card you're putting in the damage zone is like a way to deck thin so that you can more likely hit the triggers that you need to put on a mobile hospital. So that's another combo you can do with like Gavrail and Sariel or any other unit for that matter that searches the deck. But I think Sariel is the only one off the top of my head I can think of that is relevant in that manner. But yeah, so for Gavrail, and then we are running 3 Zerachiel. So Zerachiel is just necessary to pair with Mobile Hospital because there's no other way to efficiently get grade 3s in the soul in order to use Mobile Hospital's ability. But Zerachiel is still a solid card, I think, at 3. I was considering running 2 of this card, but honestly, running 2 of it would depend too much on having Sariel in hand. And basically, all Sariel would do is put Zerachiel in the damage zone. You might not have an opportunity to put Mobile Hospital in the damage zone if you rely on running only 2 copies of Zerachiel. So I feel like 3 is a good number. And that way, you can also swap into the damage zone with something like Bellyful or any other card that swaps into the damage zone more easily because you more likely see it at 3 copies. But this card is what you want to be using when you're at the grade when you're both you and your opponent are at the grade 3 and you have Zerachiel in the damage zone. Then you use its skill, which is if your opponent Vanguard is at grade 3 or greater. So not both you have to be a grade 3, but only your opponent has to be a grade 3. And this is a main phase ability because it's an activated ability. So the card has to be face up in your damage zone. You put it in. You put it on. Oh, excuse me. The cost is you put a card from the top of your deck into your damage zone face down, and then you ride this card on your Vanguard circle as stand. So that's a really good ability to just get that soul stacked up with grade 3s. Of course, eventually you want to re-ride back into the Gavrail, just so that you have Gavrail's skill online. But usually early game you'll be using Zerachiel's skill a lot just to build up um, that grade 3 soul, or build up the soul with grade 3s. And another thing that Zerachiel does well is give you protect markers. So she's a protect spammer as well. Of course, we love protect one spam because that gives you all the PGs that you need in your hand. We're not running any PGs in this deck otherwise, so being able to get PGs really efficiently into your hand with Zerachiel is really nice. And of course, I think this is a necessary thing to explain in some detail. We are running 2 copies of Mobile Hospital Feather Palace. So this is the new finisher that we're running in place of Hamiel. We're running only 2 copies though because it's not like Hamiel where it's literally good at doing every single thing that Angel Feathers want to do in this kind of deck. It really only does one thing, which is finish. So and it's not as dynamic in terms of being able to do it early or late game. So you really only want 2 copies of this card. And I feel like 2 copies is enough because you're able to search it out really easy with Sariel and some of the other cards in the deck. Um, and speaking of which, I do think you want to see this card in your hand by your second grade 3 turn, because that's when you really start wanting to do, that's when you really start want to, that's when you really start that's when you really want to start going into your excuse me. That's when you really want to start going into your combo. Trying to generate as much crits as you can to stack up Mobile Hospital to a bunch of power. So let's kind of read Mobile Hospital's skill just to make sure we're aware what it does. So on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, when it attacks, Soul Blast 2 grade 3s, and then so that's the cost. The cost is Soul Blast 2 grade 3s. And then the ability is face down all the cards in your damage zone, and until end of battle, this unit gets plus 20,000 power and plus 1 crit, and your opponent cannot call Sentinels from hand to Guardian Circle. So since it says Sentinels, this includes the 30k shield that we are running in this deck. This includes the Sentinel, as well as the traditional PGs that are run in most decks. So that's a really nice card to make sure your opponent has to guard with a lot of cards in their hand, and they're very likely not going to be able to guard because this card again will be like 70,000, 80,000 power by the time you pull off the full combo. It could even be at 60,000. Even 60,000 is going to be hard to guard for the opponent. And basically, the reason why I mentioned earlier, the reason why I was very explicit at mentioning what was the cost and what was the ability, is that the cost only includes Soul Blast 2 grade 3s. So that is what you need to have in order to be able to use the skill. But the rest of the skill or the ability, you can call it whatever you want. But for the second part, face down all the cards in your damage zone. If all the cards in your damage zone are already face down, you can still use the ability. The way Vanguard works, as you might already know, but just in case you didn't know, is if you pay the cost, then you do as much of the ability as you can. So obviously, if you have face up cards in your damage zone, you have to face them down. But if you have all the cards in your damage zone already face down, then no worries. You still get to do the rest of the ability, which is get the 20,000 power plus 1 crit and the guard restrict. So that's just worth noting. Keep that in mind whenever you use this card. You don't really need to stress out about having no face-up cards in your damage zone. And in the first place, I think this deck doesn't really lose counterblast easily. Like it's so easy to get your counterblast black with how much counterblast back. Oh, that was a tongue twister. It's so easy to get your counterblast back easily with cards like Sariel and Salaphiel, and basically every card in the deck that rescue checks or heals a card from damage. That's like an automatic counter charge already. So you have really nothing to worry about in terms of counterblast, how much face up or face down damage you have, things like that. It's not really a huge deal. So yeah, that is the new build after the ban of Hamiel. I still think this deck is pretty good. It's obviously been slowed down because Hamiel is naturally a faster card than Mobile Hospital, but I do think this deck can put up a good fight. And I hope this was a helpful deck profile. I hope you gained some insight into the deck and how it should be run. And if you have any questions or any feedback, let me know in the comments below. Please make sure to leave a like, comment, and please subscribe to the channel for more Cardfight Vanguard deck profiles. And also, I play other card games like Yu-Gi-Oh and Hearthstone. So those are kind of the things I upload. Feel free to subscribe and all of that. And I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.